I was at the darkest, worst part of my life. And from the outside looking in, everyone would think that my life was perfect. I have a great profession where I make good money. It's a noble profession with respect that comes with it. I have this marriage to this beautiful woman with 4 amazing kids, great house. Everything looks perfect on the outside. Problem was inside, I was dying inside.
In this type of work, death, injury, trauma is part of it, and dealing with that and unpacking it so that you can be like, you can't be a normal human being after it, right? Like the new normal is something different than you were.
No, and that's something I just recently got asked, and I was talking to my wife about it. We have a battalion chief that's in charge of our health and wellness program. And he reached out to me the other day and asked if I would share my journey with the people coming in. And you're 100% right, John. I think whether you're in fire, military, law enforcement, you're going to be exposed to a lot of tragedy. You're going to be exposed to a lot of death. You're going to be exposed to a lot of bad days. And the way I equate it is that you start off your life and you're wearing rose-colored glasses and everything looks great and everything's cheery. At some point in time along your career, someone takes them off your face and they step on them and crush them. And they have a little bit of glass left in them. You pick them up, you put them on your face, and you will never see the world the same as you saw it before. And I think they say the average person that's out there maybe sees one person not actually die, but actually one person dead in their life. And it may be just a family member that may have died of a disease or an illness or a sickness or of natural causes. And that may be it. Death is something that when it becomes part of your norm and your normal life, and you've seen more death, the problem is when you think what you're seeing is normal and it's not. I just had a new guy join and I said, hey, I just want you to make sure you need to go talk to your wife first and say, I'm going to change, because you are. And you need to make sure that she's okay with it, because none of this is worth losing her over. You have kids. So you need to make sure that the home is good. But you're going to see a lot of death. You're going to see people die in ways that people don't understand. And over my career, I've seen people burn to death, heard people burn to death, seen the aftermath of that. I've seen people get shot. I've seen people get stabbed. I don't want to traumatize listeners. I really don't. It's the things that I've experienced, they're horrible, and they do come back. I don't have nightmares, but I do have a cognizant awareness of avoiding areas that I notice that I'll drive away and not go to places where things have happened, because I just don't want to think about them, because the actual proximity or the sights or the sounds will bring them.
Yeah. And that is one of those things too. An interesting, point is like what you see, the average person will see. Randomly Thanksgiving this year, driving on I-20, and I was unfortunately right behind a semi truck that he tried to thread the needle underneath an underpass. He fell asleep, is my guess, just watching what happened, but he did not survive it. It was a pretty gnarly and gruesome incident. And then that makes me question myself, right? I was the first one up to the cab. You see it. I think about it to this day. I process things differently, I think, than most people. And Kevin, you're probably the same way. And most people in this line of work, it affects you. I think about it. It drives a lot of my decision making when it comes to, I know you're saying avoiding areas and avoid memories to a certain extent that, but then also it is in my calculus of decision making of what I'm going to do in certain events and certain scenarios based upon that. It's not the golden ticket, but I find myself thinking about that and how I process it. And I've never talked to anyone about it, but to me, I'm curious about it because those type of events are rare unless you're in your line of work and you're seeing it every single day. But it's people have to deal with this stuff.
Yeah.
Routinely.
It is, and it's been my privilege to deal with that stuff for other people, to be there to try to make a difference, to try to pull people out of those bad situations. But like you said, when you process it, it does change you. And unfortunately, with your wife and your children, or your spouse, I should say, there are women involved in my career as well. With your spouse and children, your spouse and children will die 1,000 deaths over your career, because you'll see exactly what happened to someone the night before. And then, case in point, I just recently had a vehicle rescue where it was all kids. Everyone was under the age of 21. There were 9 people involved. 2 cars went head on, driver to driver, both going 60 miles an hour. And we fought like hell to get the drivers out. And they both ended up passing. And the one that we had a lot of trouble getting out drives a Toyota Camry. And the next night, my daughter, who drives a Toyota Camry, who's 18, asked if she could stay out extra late. And I'll be honest, predictable is preventable is what comes into your head. And when you've seen it time and time again, hey, most of the people I've cut out of cars over my career have been after 10 o'clock at night. Of those, most are doing something they should not be doing. Yeah. They're breaking a law, breaking a rule, common sense. They're racing. They're in the wrong place. They're with the wrong people. They're doing the wrong thing. They're drinking. They're on drugs. They're high. They're drunk. It's always the same thing. And then of that 10% that happens in the daytime, it's still people doing the wrong things. Alcohol is often involved, not as often, but it's someone texting on their phone that drives under a semi, that kind of thing. So when your kids go to do those things, and you start seeing your children or your spouse do the things that you've seen cause problems, that it's a horror. It's a horror that you snap at, and you just go, hey, don't do that. And they don't understand why you're saying don't do that. But to you, it's personal, and to them, they just think, what's wrong with it? And it's that, I think that's the biggest part, is that any normal human being, you join a profession, whether it's military, law enforcement, fire service, and you're 20 years old, and you're 20, 21, anywhere between 18 and 22, normally people try to start. And in our country, people say you're an adult at 18. Then they say you get an extra privilege of alcohol consumption at 21. And now you're a full-fledged adult. Who you are at that 21 is not going to be who you are at 30. And who you are at 30 is not going to be who you are at 40. And who you are at 40 is not going to be who you are at 50. And I know that because I look back and I've changed over these 5 decades. And but not only does just time change you, but all these experiences change you. And so you end up having to take compass bearing checks on your relationships. And I did not do that for a long time. I did not do that in my marriage. I did not do that with my kids. And I was dealing with all this stuff in unhealthy ways. I was doing it in the classic type A guy. I was suppressing, I was drowning all this stuff in alcohol and suppressing all of it with that. And then when I wanted to wake up, I drink coffee. And at no point did I become a quintessential alcoholic. I've gone an incredible amount of time without drinking alcohol. I don't have to drink it. But at the time, I was using it to self-medicate. And all those things have negative effects on all your relationships.
We talked about the fire, right? As kind of the catalyst and for going down that road and like using, alcohol or not really doing the compass check. What made you want to do that compass check? What got you to say, hey, I need to change things?
I think with that final event, I started to overflow, and that's without getting too personal on it. It was, I realized like I was thinking of harming myself, and it's not okay. And honestly, like, it's hard for me to believe I'm sitting here talking about it on this conversation, but I guess it's part of my therapy of finally getting it out. I was at the darkest, worst part of my life. And from the outside looking in, everyone would think that my life was perfect. I have a great profession where I make good money. It's a noble profession with respect that comes with it. I have this marriage to this beautiful woman with 4 amazing kids, great house. Everything looks perfect on the outside. Problem was, inside, I was dying inside.
You're not alone in that. I know 3 people, close friends throughout, and family, or tied to my family, that have committed suicide. in my lifetime. And looking at it, I never would have imagined. In fact, the first instance of it is we were like, that's the last person we ever would have thought would have done that. But everyone struggles with demons, and everyone handles it differently. So the fact you're sharing it, I think, is huge, because you're not the first person to have those thoughts. And hopefully someone hears this and realizes that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it just requires a course correction. And I haven't been there, but I imagine it's a lot of work to climb out of that hole. But I think you can attest it's probably worth it.
It's absolutely worth it. And, and like you said, it is common. It's common in the professions. I just recorded a podcast with a friend of mine, Jason Gardner, who was a SEAL, and he made 30 years and retired. And he's part of the Echelon Front Leadership Program. And in our conversation, we were talking about it, and he had a really good point. When your car's broken, you go to a mechanic. When your knee's dislocated, you go to an orthopedic surgeon. And those are his exact words. Why do people think that they can self-medicate and handle everything on their own? At some point, you have to realize, hey, this isn't normal. It's bothering me a little bit. Or even if it's not bothering you, just thinking about it, why not go take your head and get a tune-up? Talk to someone that actually knows what they're talking about, because you may think it doesn't bother you, but it will manifest at another point. And I think that's one of the things that people don't tell people when they begin their careers. The chronic exposure to acute events will have a culmination effect on you. And if you don't maintain it by somehow, you can put a graphic description on it somehow of a rain barrel filling up with a torrential downpour, or just a drizzle over years. If you don't open that rain barrel at the bottom and let some of it out, eventually it's going to overflow. And that's where I had gotten to, because I had just had the old school mentality of, if it bothers you, make dark humor. Pick at someone else, make a joke out of it. Drink. Hey, let's go drink in the morning. As soon as we get off, let's go hit one of our local waterfront taverns. And that does it work? No, it's like putting Band-Aids on head wounds. It makes you feel good for a little bit, but it doesn't actually solve it.
That's what I think is good about all these kind of discussions that are coming out, because we're rolling out of 20 years of continuous combat operations for a vast majority of this generation and whatever the next generation is, and how we split it. But the point is the fact that, like, it goes back to this. I don't know what the most complex human body part is, but I imagine the brain is probably it. And there's millions of data points and decisions that are being made and assumptions. And if you're not willing to give that a tune up when you're struggling and you're seeing bad stuff, either maybe it's a singular event, maybe it's multiple things, maybe it's things that happen to you. If you're not willing to invest and go get that checked out, you're doing yourself a disfavor. And again, I'm not a head doctor.
No,
it's probably worth it to go talk to one.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I think people lose, and I lost it, and this is something that I think is important. When I first went, I minimized everything because I'm not a combat veteran. I said, I don't know why I'm here. I'm not a combat veteran. And the person I was speaking to said, hey, just see a lot of people that serve in the military that end up that have a stress. And I refuse to put the D on the end of post-traumatic stress. I refuse. So I won't be doing that. I believe in post-traumatic growth, in identifying that, yes, something bad happened. Yes, I was part of it. I'm going to come out of it stronger. That's where I am. That's just my personal headspace at this point in my life. But people who have these traumatic events, often in the military, they're in a 4-year enlistment, 6-year enlistment, and they get an exposure, and it's not a daily exposure. And it's in a place that's overseas. And it may be one time, it may be 10 things that happen to them, one thing or 10 things, maybe 20 things. But it happened overseas more often than not. And they separate from service, they come home, they deal with it or don't. And I'm not minimizing anything they do. I have an incredible amount of respect for all of our military veterans. But the thing that's not addressed with the fire service is fire service tends to be one of those abnormal careers where you work 30 years for the same agency and your war does not end.
And most guys are probably working where they live. So when you're off work, you're going to that restaurant, driving through that intersection, where you might have had a vehicle extrication or responded to some kind of medical emergency or fire.
Sure. And it's not even just the traumatic events. It's the grief of, if you ever hear a parent lose their child and you hear the wail of a mother that realizes their child has left life and is gone forever to eternity, that sound, you never forget that sound. And you don't forget that house that you went into. And the point I'm trying to make on that is, for the most people, there's 30 years of those experiences all bound up. Now, the frequency is different for every individual in the fire department throughout the country, whether you're volunteer, which the vast majority of our fire service in this country is volunteer. And I have a tremendous respect for them because they're doing everything that we do without being compensated. They're doing it just out of their noble nature. Hats off to them. I don't think I would do what I do for free anymore. Everyone starts off saying they would, but when you start getting paychecks, it changes you. Across the country, your first responders are, for decades on end, experiencing this stuff, where they live, where they reside, with their neighbors, with their friends. And it adds up. And thank God it's finally gotten a little bit of recognition. And I think it was 2018 or 19 was one of the years right around COVID. The fire service was actually losing more people to suicide than structure fire. It's the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about, but it's there.